I am a maker.
I am a bridge builder.
I am persistent.
I am eager to help.
I'm a risk taker.
I am inspired by the possibilities of entrepreneurship.
I am a leader.
I am a thinker. I am a doer.
I am a perfectionist.
I'm an entrepreneur because if I don't make it, no one else will.
We are actually able to develop processes that can be more efficient.
My name is Cynthia Franklin. I'm Director of Entrepreneurship here at Stern. The Entrepreneurs Challenge is one of the largest and most intense venture competitions of its type in the country, and it spans over 8 months. The challenge literally walks teams step by step through the startup process, from idea to launch.
The Entrepreneurs Challenge molds the entrepreneurs in 2 ways. First, it subjects them to rigorous analysis about their business. And second, it exposes them to tremendous mentors and leaders in the entrepreneurial community. And both of those factors help make their businesses 10 times better.
Its primary aim is to support and provide guidance to all the students, alumni, faculty, and researchers who really want to create something new in the world of business. The secondary aim is to identify and reward those ventures being developed inside of the university and inside of the NYU community with the greatest potential to not only become viable businesses, but more importantly, become disruptive ones.
Entrepreneurship is like strategy and theory in action. It brings together everything that you learn about business into a focused attempt to solve a problem and sparks creative ways of thinking about that problem.
No matter how many ideas I think I've heard of, when I come to the Entrepreneurs Challenge, I'm just blown away by the creativity, the inspiration, the new ideas that this generation of entrepreneurs has to offer.
We're working on an in-bed resistance training product for the elderly.
A loyalty program for plant-based eating.
Building a more efficient, powerful, and lightweight electric motor for electric vehicles.
What I loved about the process was there were many people at NYU that pointed out gaps in our plan, right? So they said, you don't have this or you missed this. And so that iterative process of learning from your peers, from venture capitalists, from judges, from professors, really helped us make the plan sort of bulletproof when we did present it in the final round.
Oh, it's been incredibly helpful. It's been very useful to have a structured process. We've had a lot of coaching, we've had the boot camps.
It's forced us to progress a lot faster than we may have otherwise. It's held us accountable to deadlines. It's exposed us to a lot of really interesting people and mentors.
I would say the one-to-one support that we get from the people here at Stern, I wouldn't think that you would be able to do that with this many teams, but it's been unbelievable for us.
I think this competition challenges you in ways that you weren't expecting, and this actually comes up a lot in startup life. And so the piece of advice I'd give to everybody out there is to just keep going. Just have persistence, because if you keep making a little bit of progress every day, it actually adds up.
It's important for universities to cultivate entrepreneurial talent because these are the people that are creating a new future for us.
We try to bring people together to let them know they can succeed, they can do it, they can take the ideas, they can get a mentor, they can get an opportunity to look out at the world, and in a little bit of a formal sense, they can look around and say, gee, this is a place where I can do things. Give them the opportunity to look inside themselves and try and figure out how can they convert that to a business idea.
The Entrepreneurs Challenge is not an academic exercise. We do not give awards for the best plans, and this is not a pitch competition.
Teams participating in the Entrepreneurs Challenge are really getting a 2-for-1 sort of deal. The challenge is both an accelerator program and a competition. It's an accelerator program because we provide boot camps, workshops, and tons of one-on-one coaching. But the second component, the competition, is the icing on the cake, if you will. While the teams are learning how to refine their venture concepts and business models, they can also compete for the chance to win cash prizes and pro bono services.
The teams that typically win the Entrepreneurs Challenge take full advantage of all the resources at their disposal. They leverage the thriving New York City ecosystem NYU sits at the center of. The prize money is not a way of saying congratulations for a job well done. The prize money is to fund all the work that's yet to come to bring the concept to fruition.
Hello. Can you hear me? Okay. All right. I see. Can I be heard? It's like so weird. I'm like, it feels like I'm in a black box. Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Welcome to the 23rd. Can you believe it? 23rd kickoff for the Entrepreneurs Challenge here at NYU Stern. This event is, all right, folks. First, it was the landscapers coming right as we were kicking off. So if you hear a leaf blow in the background, that's what you hear. And now I'm not able to change slides. I'm turning to
Cynthia, do you want me to share on my end?
Yes, and I'll just keep it moving, and then you catch up to where I am. All right.
Okay, and thanks for your patience, everybody.
Let me stop sharing first. Okay. Yeah. So as I was saying, so glad that you could join us. This is the 23rd year that we've been doing the Entrepreneurs Challenge here at Stern. We meaning the Berkeley Center for Entrepreneurship. And for those of you who don't know, the Berkeley Center is a hub of startup activity here at the university. We basically exist to help startups anticipate and navigate the complex challenges that they will face on their entrepreneurial journey. We think of ourselves as a venture design studio for bold thinkers, innovative doers, and entrepreneurial leaders. And we say design because we feel very much that entrepreneurship is very much a design process, just like you would design a product. It's so much more. And so that's what we do. And the Entrepreneurs Challenge is our signature program. So just who is we? On behalf of the entire team, let me just introduce you very quickly. We are these folks you see here. I'm Cynthia Franklin, and then we have Deepak Hegde, professor here at Stern, our academic director. Phoebe Punzalang, you'll see a lot more later. And then Danny, Shay, and Patricia round out the first team. And then we have a wonderful second team of student workers whom we could not do this without. And along your journey in working with us, you will encounter these folks as well. So we just wanted to shout out to them and just let you know who's who. So here's what we have planned for you. There is, we move pretty quickly through the agenda. We have a lot to get to, but we do move very quickly. And I know in some of the material it said it would be a 2.5-hour program. It will not be unless you just have amazing, a lot of questions. So if it takes that long to get through all your questions, we'll do it. But for the formal program, we anticipate being able to get through very quickly. And so if you have a 6 o'clock class, you should be able to make that, having gotten a lot of the content. So let's kick off with program and competition overview. So let's just be very simple about how we define this. The Entrepreneurs Challenge seeks to identify and nurture NYU startups. The most promising ones, we're looking to provide a springboard for them. As you saw in the video, this is not an academic exercise. This is not a pitch competition. We are very much looking for you to go on and launch scalable and sustainable ventures. The competition is made possible by a generous donation from the Renard Family Foundation. Mr. Ira Renard and his son, Ari Renard, have just been incredibly supportive of the program. And I think it's important to shout out to our alumni when they really come through on behalf of the NYU community. So in terms of some notable alumni who have come out of the program, those of you who have been to other events may know that the company that was Pinterest got their start, or that is Pinterest, sorry, got their start in the competition. They started out as Toad and they did several iterations, yada, 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 and it became Pinterest. They found their first investor at the finals in which they presented. They were a second place winner, and you saw Vikram in the video talking about his experience. We also have a wonderful tradition of supporting social ventures. For us, social ventures are for-profit ventures. And so a perfect example of this is Beyond Good, which was, you might know this as Medicast. And for those of you who have been around for a while, when we, especially pre-COVID, you could hardly come to an event where you didn't leave with a candy bar. And Medicast is just this amazing company, fair trade, bean to bar chocolate that is made in Madagascar, which is an island country off of the Africa. And what they've been able to do there is not only produce this delicious chocolate, but also be economic engines for a relatively poor country. And then lastly is cosmology. And lastly, in that, all I'm going to talk about, there are many others. A wonderful company that was acquired by Amazon. And we've had companies that have come through the program that were acquired by Twitter, Airbnb. So we have a strong tradition of companies using the Entrepreneurs Challenge as a launch pad to go on and do great things. All right, so let me walk you through the structure of the competition. And that includes also the eligibility and things like that. We'll get to that later. But let me just talk about the structure. So the Entrepreneurs Challenge is actually an umbrella name for 3 different competitions: new venture, healthcare and biomedical venture, and tech venture. And I'm going to get into what's the difference between each of them right now. So with the new venture competition, it's as you might think. It's commercial ventures. This is where for-profit social impact ventures would also compete. If you're successful in this track, you are tackling a significant market opportunity. And we are sector agnostic in this category. The Rennet Family Prize for the new venture competition is up to $75,000. And we say up to because there are instances where judges will split the prize. So like I alluded to earlier, when Pinterest, which was competed, the judges chose to split the prize, and they gave them actually 25. They didn't win, and then another team, Butterbeans, got the lion's share of the prize. So up to $75,000, and that comes to you as a seed investment, and we'll talk more about that momentarily. The next competition is the tech venture competition, and this is essentially for companies that aren't necessarily using tech, because it's really very hard nowadays to be a company that isn't tech enabled. But it's for companies that are creating new and unique technologies to address an emerging need. We are also sector agnostic with regards to this competition, and the prize is also $75,000 in seed funding up to. And then lastly, is the healthcare and biomedical venture competition, which is looking to commercialize the technology that is being developed by scientists and researchers in labs and get it into the marketplace. But it is also for those entrepreneurs that are working on gnarly health-related issues that are significant and important. Again, $75,000 in seed funding from the Rennet Family Prize Fund. Okay, so those are the 3. So $250,000 plus in prizes, not all in cash. This takes a variety of forms. So in addition to the seed funding, there are prototyping grants that are involved. And those grants are cash, and that comes later in the process. We also have some wonderful partners we'll introduce you to later on, and we'll share that with you. But they provide pro bono services as part of the prize package. And this includes legal services, accounting services, web hosting credits, and a variety of other types of services that are important for a startup to have access to. And then I've mentioned finally the seed capital. And it's important to know that this is based on achieving key milestones. And we'll talk about that later. Okay, so next I want to cover the form in which the initial prize is presented. So as I mentioned to you, it is done in the form of an investment. And that investment takes the form of a KISS agreement. So for many of you familiar with the startup world, you probably are familiar with SAFE. KISS is very similar to a SAFE in that it was developed by 500 startups, and it's a form of a convertible note. And by convertible, it goes in as debt, but then it converts to equity if a financing event occurs or based on a maturity date. The good thing about it is that it does not sit on your balance sheet as debt, which makes it easier for you to, as an early stage company, in order to put together all the financing. And so it actually is to your advantage. And in many ways, it protects early stage founders. So we're not going to spend a whole lot of time. I don't want to get into a workshop on KISS agreements, but if you Google, you will find plenty of information on KISS agreements. And you will also find on our website documentation that explains more about the terms of acceptance and how the money is awarded. But it's important to note that it is done as an investment. We love to get some upside. So when you win, it's because we really believe you're onto something and this is going to scale and it's going to take off. And we want to be a part of that ride. So it's in our best interest, quite frankly, to assist you along that journey and make sure that your trajectory is as steep as possible. And part of the way we do that is working with you to develop milestones that we think are important and significant based on the concept that you're looking to develop. So in terms of where the partners, I mentioned that earlier. These are just a few. Foley's a law firm. I think most of you are probably familiar with AWS. Envision is very helpful for digital prototyping. Lex Mundi is also provides legal services specifically for social impact companies. Monday.com is just to help you keep your team organized. And Janover is an accounting firm that is a partner is Jay Freeberg. And he's just been very generous with their time. And so they will assist with accounting services in your early stage. And so that is pretty much in a nutshell the key essential elements, if you will, of the challenge. So now I'm going to turn it over to Phoebe Punzalan. And Phoebe is someone you're going to get to know very well, and you're going to want to be very nice to Phoebe. She's our associate director, but she serves in the role of managing the day-to-day operation of the Entrepreneurs Challenge. So take it away, Phoebe.
Okay, thanks, Cynthia. And I actually misspoke earlier, so that's my bad. I told Cynthia she was done after that slide, when in actuality I had more for her. But now, due to my own error, I'll pick it up anyway. How's that? So, as Cynthia mentioned, there's really so much to know about the Entrepreneurs Challenge, and that's probably why I said, yeah, I think that's about right. We've already covered, I'm counting here, 17 slides already on the Entrepreneurs Challenge, but there's more. It's like an infomercial. So we want to get into, or I will get into, some of the phases of competition. So this is really where, we kind of dive into what the challenge is all about. So on the screen here, you'll see we have sort of a very simple timeline to show you the two phases of the competition. So first and foremost, the name of the competition, the name of the program is called the Entrepreneurs Challenge. So from that, you certainly get the competition aspect of it. I think that part is very clear. But what people often don't know is that the real selling point or the real value add from the Entrepreneurs Challenge is the accelerator. So for those of you for whom, this isn't common, kind of day-to-day parlance, an accelerator program is a program that helps founders really get from point A to point Z faster than they would have if they were going it alone without, help or additional resources. So that's what we aim to do. We aim to really help speed up that process of venture creation and venture development by giving you tons of resources. And that all comes as part of the challenge. So you'll actually see here that the accelerator phase of the Entrepreneurs Challenge is quite a long time, December, January, February, March. The first part of April, whereas the competition part of it is really just very short. So we have 2 judging rounds that come in the later part of April and then in mid-May. But what we're really trying to do is get you up to that point where you feel comfortable by the time we get to the competition piece, you feel like you've really done quite a lot of work on your venture already. So another note, these are the times that we live in right now, and at NYU, we are still in a period of transition. Things are slowly starting to normalize little by little, but we are always trying to be cautious. So a quick word on the format of the challenge and all of the associated related activities. So we are definitely going to be 100% virtual for the fall. So that's December and January. There are 1 or 2 exceptions, and for those of you who are sort of lucky enough to be accepted into the challenge, we may have 1 or 2 events that we are able to hold in person, being very careful and being very safe. But for the most part, we are going to try to remain virtual for the next, few months, first few months of the competition, the challenge. And then we will sort of play it by ear as everybody has been doing, but we'll sort of reassess probably in the early spring semester to see whether or not switching over to in-person or maybe doing a more hybrid model makes sense. And we'll work together and have patience with each other as we sort of move through that process. So I want to now dive in a little bit deeper to phase 1, the Startup Accelerator, which we saw. Let me kind of go back some slides to refresh your memory on what I'm talking about. So what I'm talking about is this period here, from December to March. So December is when we release all of the announcements about, who's in. And so that really begins the start of the accelerator piece of the Entrepreneurs Challenge. And the accelerator piece comprises 3 really big ticket items or resources that are going to really benefit all of you as founders. So the first is coaching and consulting. We have a really amazing, large, and very robust volunteer pool. And when I say volunteer, what probably comes to your mind is, I'm going to go and spend a Saturday doing some kind of light activity, picking up trash off the side of the road. Those are all very important things. But in our context, in our world, when we say volunteers, we are talking about experienced entrepreneurs, seasoned professionals, industry experts, all very highly capable individuals who are very generous with their time and their expertise. And we match them up with our teams. And these individuals, these volunteer coaches, really help to move the teams along, help you think about strategy, what your next steps are, help you to think critically through a lot of the things that you may not be thinking about on your own. In addition, we have partnered with the NYU Stern Entrepreneurship and Startup Association, ESA. It's the MBA student club at Stern that's focused on entrepreneurship and innovation. And our partnership with ESA has led to the MBA Startup Consulting Program, whereby, again, also very capable MBA students will partner with Entrepreneurs Challenge teams to do some consulting work for them. And this is, a really nice pairing because obviously the MBAs have a strong skill set in business, which is still very important to entrepreneurship. And then there are a lot of teams that really could use help in that regard, but they bring their incredible vision to the table. And so that partnership is always nice as well. So that's number one, coaching and consulting. Number two are prototyping grants. So this is really important because, you'll hear us talk, about this again and again and again, but startups really need to test their ideas out. And one of the best ways to test is through prototyping or coming up with MVPs, minimum viable products, or other forms of user testing. And sometimes you need cash. You need a little cash to do that. And so we have small amounts of money that teams can sort of apply for. And if your application is accepted, then you'll get a little bit of funding to make that happen. And Cynthia had touched on this a little bit earlier too, when she was talking about the prizes. So that's prototyping grants. And number three are boot camps and workshops. So again, our goal here is really to equip you with the skills necessary to take your idea from just that, from an idea to an actual viable business that's, generating revenue, attracting customers. And a big part of that is education. So we do that through boot camps, which are sort of longer format, intense dives, typically on the weekend. We have you starting at maybe 9 or 10 in the morning. We'll be with you until, maybe 3 or 4 in the afternoon. And for the day, we really take a plunge into essential startup skills and make sure that you feel well equipped. And workshops are similar, also educational programming with the goal to train and build up your skills, but these are shorter formats. So these might be, for example, 5 to 7 on a weeknight, or maybe over lunch, 12:30 to 2 o'clock, something like that. And those are typically focused on a very specific and niche topic, also relevant to what you are doing as founders and as startup teams. So now let me move on to phase 2, the venture competition. So 2 key dates to plug into your calendar here. So number 1 is semifinals, that's April 8th. And number 2, this is the big one, this is May 13th is finals. So those are the 2 big judging rounds that make up the competition phase of the Entrepreneur's Challenge. And what do we ask for in these 2 evaluation phases? So these 3 things. Number 1 is a written startup plan. So this is generally, I feel like it comes out to about 10 pages or so, 1.5 font, but it is sort of a precursor to a fully fledged business plan. So this is a plan that you write to, make sense of all of your thoughts and kind of clarify in a concise way what your plan is for taking that idea that you had that's been brewing for the last several months and your plan for launching that and getting it off the ground. So that's the written startup plan. And we do ask every team to work together to submit one of those in advance of the pitch day. So something else that we ask you to submit in advance is a 2-minute explainer video. This gives a nice juxtaposition to the written component. So there's a written piece and then there's also a visual piece. And we'd like for every team to be facile with explaining your ventures in both formats. So that's the reasoning for that. And then finally, you'll see 9-minute live pitch with live sort of in brackets there. So again, we will all work together and see what format makes sense for the past. It's like I'm losing track of time, but at least for the past year, we have been virtual. And I know the year prior to that, we were virtual for the tail end of the challenge. And for this, we will sort of see, what kind of hand Delta deals to us and whether or not we can actually be in person. But there will be a pitch at both the semifinals stage and the finals stage as well. All right, so next, I'm going to cover how to apply. But, before I do that, I want to just recognize that, we've been here for, a little over a half hour already. And now we're coming up on a slide count of 24. So it's 24 slides of content. And we are not even close to being done, but there was a lot that was covered. So I want to take a moment to take a little break and show you, you're here, you've heard from Cynthia, you've heard from me. We certainly are very close to the challenge, but you're probably curious, sitting there at the end, other end of the camera saying, okay, well, if I get into this, what is the experience going to be like for me? You might want to hear from somebody who's actually lived what it's like to be part of the Entrepreneur's Challenge. So we'd like to show you a short video of a team, an alumni team that did win the New Venture competition a few years ago. We're incredibly and immensely proud of them. They are FinClude. And so Shay, I know you're kind of out there. If you can play the FinClude video, we'll do that, and then we'll dive into all of the nitty-gritty details on how to apply.
Hello, my name is Yannis Giokas, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of FinClude. I studied electronic engineering and I did my MBA in Greece. And later on, I did a master's in business analytics at NYU Stern.
I am Ioana Staneglaudi. I'm co-founder and chief risk officer of FinClude. I've been working for the past almost 20 years in corporate finance. We created FinClude based on our personal stories. In essence, if you live in the US, there are 250 million adults, and there are numerous credit bureaus. In the European Union, there are 510 million adults, and there is no common credit scoring provider. Yannis relocated in the US, nobody knew him, he had to start from scratch. I relocated for studies within the European Union, and I couldn't rent a house, I couldn't get a credit card.
Everything started as a personal story, and we decided to go deep on that when European Union issued a new directive that changed the way that financial transactional data became available. I saw an opportunity to use this data in order to enable Europeans to get access to a credit system.
So in essence, we have created a common way, a uniform way, a universal way to assess creditworthiness and affordability of individuals that live and do business and work within the European Union.
So FinClude stands for Financial Inclusion. We decided to participate in NYU Entrepreneurs Challenge because we needed guidance and support from those that knew how credit score is working. And we believe that NYU, through its community, its location in New York, in the heart of the financial system, would be able to give us access to mentors, resources, and networks that would enable us to materialize our vision.
Berkeley helped us a lot in terms of productization, get the product out there, actually creating something that would be of value and people want.
We were actually in a way forced to create a business plan that was used many times more during our, let's say, business development or business maturing, and it was an invaluable asset that we had never thought of doing in the past.
Judges from the judging panel of the challenge, of the Entrepreneurs Challenge, invested in FinClude. And this, for us, it's a badge of honor. Since the Entrepreneurs Challenge, I feel we have done a lot. I mean, we have secured a pre-seed funding round, and currently we are closing on our seed round. Our company was selected by the United Nations as one of the 50 companies worldwide promoting the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, which is huge for us. You know, the most precious accomplishment is that we have 4 paying customers. We're a B2B company, so it's 4 big customers: a financial institution, a credit reference agency. It's, you know, big organizations that matter. You know, at the end of the day, we got a stamp of approval by one of the most significant universities in the world. We used it. It took us far, and we are super thankful for what we got.
Our vision for FinClude is to become a pan-European credit scoring operator that would enable freedom of mobility and greater access and inclusion to financial services for Europeans. It is astonishing that in US you can go from California to New York and your credit history follows you. While in Europe, if you go from one bank to the other, you might be rejected just because you don't have enough financial information about it. So we want to change this paradigm and we want to become the golden standard of financial inclusion.
I am an entrepreneur because I want to work whenever, from wherever, at any time, at my own pace. But I love, the flexibility and the freedom.
I am an entrepreneur because I don't like getting no for problems that can be solved through data.
Okay, I love that story. All right, give me 2.5 seconds to reshare my screen, everybody, and we will get back into it. Okay, there we go. So yes, I love that story. They are an incredible team. They had an incredible vision for the change they wanted to make, the things that they wanted to achieve. And what I will say is that we saw them at every single thing that we had. They were, Yanis and Joanna both were like sponges. If we had an event, they were there. And I think that really goes to show that the challenge is really what you make of it. There's a lot to take advantage of. And more often than not, the more you take advantage of, the farther in the competition you'll go. So speaking of kind of getting far in the competition, you have to start somewhere, right? So the first step really is to apply. So here's a high level overview of the application process. And then I will dive a little bit deeper into some of the things that you probably have questions about looking at just this one slide. So step one is to determine your eligibility. And a few people were already asking in the chat about what it means to be eligible. And I'm not ignoring you on purpose. It's just that we have slides on that. So we're going to get to that in about half a second. But yes, the first step is to determine, are you eligible to apply? If you are eligible to apply, great. What you'll want to do next is begin working on your concept summary. I'm going to talk a little bit about the concept summary in a moment, but the kind of summary of that is that it is a document, much like, if you were applying to undergrad, this would be your team's personal essay, so to speak. So it's a written deliverable that is evaluated subjectively and will be used to determine sort of where you are at in the startup process. And will be, our kind of pool of evaluators will be reading those carefully. And so you'll want to work on that. You don't want to just start that, one night before the application is due. So you'll determine your eligibility. You'll start working on your concept summary. The application deadline is November 3rd at 11:59 p.m., so just before midnight. And you will submit the following kind of 4 categories of materials. So the first is venture and team information, and this is in the form of just an online form that asks you several questions about your venture's revenue, a description. We'll want to know all of the demographic information on all of the people in your team, whether you are a team of 1, and yes, that is okay, or you might be a team of 5 or 6. And that is also okay as long as you are making it work out amongst yourselves. So venture and team information is one thing you'll need to submit. You will also need to submit an application fee for each individual member of your team. Again, I'm going to get into that in a minute. The concept summary, and then a signed eligibility statement, basically an affidavit of sorts where each member will sign and say, yes, I have reviewed what it means to be eligible, what the eligibility requirements are, and by signing this document, I attest that I have met all of those criteria. So once everybody has submitted their completed applications on the 3rd, we will review them all, not our team in particular. We try to be as neutral as we possibly can. We do kind of view them, but we have a pool of external evaluators that will read all of your concept summaries and provide their thoughts on them. And then we will use those as one element in our decision-making process. And then final decisions will be emailed no later than November 24th at midnight, possibly earlier, but definitely by that date. So what does it mean to be eligible? We assess eligibility on 2 levels, so at the venture level and then also at the team level. Assessing your venture comprises the following 3 things. So past participation. Has your venture competed in the Entrepreneurs Challenge before? If you have competed in the Entrepreneurs Challenge before and you've gone all the way to the finals, unfortunately, you are no longer eligible to compete again. But by that point, you've gotten probably all of the resources that you could possibly get from us. So probably no need. But if you have competed in a prior year and you've competed in quarterfinals or semifinals, that is okay. We will still allow you to re-enter the same idea. Fundraising. I did see a few questions about, sort of like, what does it mean to be early stage? And agreed that that can be a very gray area. What is early stage to someone may not, feel like early stage to somebody else. But from a fundraising perspective, if you have raised less than $500,000 from friends and family, from institutional investors, from angel investors combined, you are okay to compete. If you have raised more than that amount, you're probably, yes, you still need help at every stage, but this is for teams that are really at those very, very early nascent stages who have not even raised 500K yet and could really use the help and then also the seed funding. Okay, so sectors, ventures in all sectors are eligible to apply. Of course, keep in mind the tracks that Cynthia discussed. So these are the 3 sectors where we are not accepting teams. That's consulting, franchises, and real estate syndications. And the reasoning for that is that we're really looking for companies that have the potential to achieve tremendous scale. And these sectors typically don't kind of lend themselves to that. But aside from that, we take all sectors, and then it's a matter of sort of selecting the track that best fits you. So if you are a very tech-centric venture, you will probably consider the tech venture track, for example. Now, one thing that I want to note, it's a little bit off slide, but for those of you who were familiar with the social venture competition that we had, social ventures are really welcome to compete across all tracks, provided your venture is also appropriate for that track in some other way. But really, we are feeling more and more as the years go on that social ventures really should be incorporated more broadly into business versus just having one track dedicated to them. There should be social impact happening in all areas of business. All right, so I mentioned that there's eligibility when it comes to ventures. There's also eligibility when it comes to your team. So each team must have at least one member who meets both of the following criteria on this slide. And those 2 criteria are: 1, has to have an NYU affiliation, one of the 4 bullets. So either an NYU student who's currently enrolled in a degree granting program, an alumnus of Stern specifically, an NYU faculty member, or an NYU researcher, and that same individual needs to have a minimum of 15% equity in the venture. So I know that in the Q&A, we're going to get tons of questions about, all sorts of different eligibility scenarios. One that comes up a lot is, our team has 4 founders and one person who is not attending NYU holds 85% equity, and then the 3 NYU individuals each have 5% equity, totaling 15%. So we should be okay, right? That would be no. So your single NYU person has to hold the 15% equity on his or her own. Now, if you have many, NYU members and each one holds more than 15%, that's terrific. But at a minimum, there needs to be one NYU affiliated person of the categories listed here who by himself or herself holds 15% equity in the company. All right. So a very quick note on application fees. These are paid on an individual basis because teams can range in size, and so this is really kind of the fairest way. These are non-refundable, and the amounts are as follows. If you are a currently enrolled NYU student, 25. If you are a currently enrolled student, but at a university other than NYU, it will be 35. And for basically everybody else, so that's NYU folks who are alums, faculty, or researchers, and then this also includes folks who are not affiliated with NYU and are no longer students as well, that would be 100. So these are the application fees, so just kind of keep that in mind for that November 3rd deadline. So now let's move on to concept summary. So we've discussed this at a couple of points, but this is going to be sort of the primary deliverable of the application. So the concept summary, if you're thinking about it from the perspective of, what is my goal here in writing the concept summary? These are really the 3 questions that you need to be answering and answering well. So number 1 is, who will care whether or not your venture exists? And really the answer to this question is equivalent to the description of who your customer segments will be. Who are you creating your startup for? To whom will what you're doing matter? So this is a really important question for you to answer, and one that we're going to be very interested to know the answer to. 2 is, why will they care? So what is keeping them up at night? What is this pressing problem or issue they have that when they find out your startup exists, they are going to feel so incredibly relieved or excited to buy whatever it is you're selling? This is essentially, what is the value proposition to your customers? What is that precious, precious gift that you are giving to them by the very virtue of your startup existing? Okay. And the 3rd one is, how do you know? What is the proof? How can you back up the answers that you have given to the previous 2 bullets? So if you are kind of my age, what we're essentially asking here is, can you show your work? What is the research that you've put in to determine, these assertions that you have? If you are kind of a current student, or maybe you're my age too, but you're just hipper than I am, I think the appropriate kind of parlance is show your receipts. So that's what we're asking you to do. We are asking you to show your work, show your receipts, tell us what kind of research you've done to arrive at your conclusions here. So phrasing this a little bit differently, this is what the concept summary is essentially asking you to do. It's asking you to demonstrate a really deep understanding of the industry that you're operating in, the markets that you intend to serve, and also asking you again to back up those assertions with your research, both primary research and secondary. And for those of you who are still a little bit new to this, primary research is, when you are speaking directly to your customers. Secondary research, this is a very kind of high level definition of it, is things like, Googling industry statistics or kind of market information. We want to know through your concept summary why your product or service is not just going to be as good as what's out there, but 10 times better than what is already out there or what the status quo is. We will also want to see that you have a prototype, and there is an asterisk there because we recognize that having a prototype might not be 100% reasonable for every single company, but you really need to assess for yourself. What kind of a business are you envisioning? And should you be in a place where you can show that you are at the prototype stage? So as one example, if you are maybe a service business and it's relatively easy for you to provide this service, let us know how you've provided that service to individuals. How have you marketed yourself? Maybe if you have a product, have you sold some? How have you managed to sell it? Do you have a small shop on Etsy? Have you done a Kickstarter? Have you tried to sell to family and friends? If you have a really, really complicated technology where the build out would take years and years and years, maybe you don't have a prototype yet. But what do you have that you can show us to say, hey, I've been working on this. This is more than just an idea in my mind. This is more than just a couple of scribbles on the back of a napkin. I really have been working on this diligently and in earnest, and here's what I have to show for it. And then finally, what are the critical risks that are part of your venture? I heard Cynthia say this, but if your startup doesn't have risk, it may not be a startup worth pursuing. There's always going to be a risk associated with any startup that's doing something really novel and that's doing something innovative. Well, we want to hear about what those risks are. And then more importantly, we want to understand whether you know or have a plan for tackling that risk or thinking about it at least. Okay, so one thing that we get is, so what are you looking for? And here are a couple of bullets. This isn't everything, but here are a few things to think about when compiling your application package. So we are searching for ventures that are solving a really worthwhile problem. There's a VC, Katie Stanton from Moxie Ventures, who uses the phrase world positive. And I really like that phrase. Again, as we were mentioning a few minutes ago, in this day and age, every business should really be thinking about its impact on society. And so we really want for all of you to kind of have that in mind and to keep that lens always at the ready when thinking of your own ventures. We also want to see ventures that are capable, again, of demonstrating progress, whether it's a prototype, maybe a little bit of traction through sales or some other thing, or some other means that you can think of where you can demonstrate to us that you are really continuing to move forward and you aren't just stagnant and, with an idea and not much more than that. Ventures with the potential to achieve tremendous scale. Ventures with very strong founding teams. We love a team with a very diverse skill set that can complement each other. And then finally, ventures with strong connections to NYU, because as we mentioned right at the beginning, as Cynthia was talking about, the mission of the Entrepreneurs Challenge is to identify the top entrepreneurial talent at NYU specifically, and to give those startups a platform for launching their ventures. All right, so next steps. And we're coming up on 6 o'clock. I'm going to be done with slides in just a few minutes. So for those of you who have to run to class, by all means, you should feel that you've gotten probably a good, 85 to 90% of what we are covering. And then we can always touch base. You can message our team, offline with any questions. And yes, we will share the recording. We will share the slides as well. So again, just a quick note for all of you who are running to a 6 o'clock class. Don't worry, we will get information into your hands. But for those of you who are staying, I'm just going to keep kind of plowing forward and moving on. One thing that you want to do as a next step is to plug all of these key dates and deadlines in. And again, yes, we will share all of these, so no need to be scribbling these in a fast and furious fashion, but I'll put them up on the screen here just so you can get a general idea of what these are. So applications, when do they open? End of this month. So in about 2 weeks, on September 30th, we will have all of those available for you to get started and start working on those. November 3rd is when applications are due. Decisions will be emailed no later than November 24th. So kind of just before Thanksgiving. And then the cohort will start kind of in December. And for those of you who end up being part of the cohort, we have this terrific kind of annual tradition where we do a venture showcase. It's hard to describe, but the best way I know how to describe the venture showcase is that it's essentially a science fair for our startup teams. So everybody sets up a booth. We invite tons of people. We did it virtually last year. Again, we'll have to wait until the springtime to see what the event looks like, but it is an exciting event. And then finally, the last two parts, which comprise the venture competition, are semifinals on April 8th, and then the final pitch off on May 3rd. So that's probably 1/10 of the dates that you will need to know for the challenge. There are tons more dates, but these are probably the really big ticket ones. And you can find kind of the full listing of dates on our website. And also, for those of you who are attending, we will be sharing with you a guidebook, which kind of reiterates a lot of, we're going to give you several different formats for getting this information. The recording, the slides, we'll have a guidebook for those of you who are, sort of learn best by reading, all sorts of things. All right, another thing that you'll want to do is make sure you're following us. So if you signed up for this session, you will be added to our mailing list. So definitely be sure to check your inbox every week for updates. In addition, you can scout us out on the web, NYUSternBerkeleyCenter.com. We have basically, I think, Shay, all of our events listed already. I know she's not going to actually answer me, but we have a lot of information there, including eligibility and a lot of the things that you guys are asking. Follow us on social as well at NYU Innovation across all 3 platforms. And then I also want to touch on a few events that we have coming up in the month of September. So this is basically what's coming up next in the pipeline. I want to make sure everybody is aware of these. So the first thing, and this is a biggie, we have something called the Designpreneurs Hackathon. This is a joint program offered by us, the Berkeley Center for Entrepreneurship, in partnership with our friends at the School of Visual Arts. So the Designpreneurs Hackathon is a really interesting program. It's a 3-day hackathon event, and it's designed for startups who are working on digital products. Either that is the core focus or your startup is heavily supplemented by a digital component. And so what we do is pair NYU startups and NYU founders who are working on digital products with digital designers from the School of Visual Arts, and you will collaborate over a 3 days over a weekend, and finish the weekend or culminate the weekend with an actual usable prototype. So for those of you who have sort of been listening and maybe being worried because you don't have a prototype yet, come to this. I strongly encourage you. The actual hackathon itself is at the end of October, just before the application deadline to the Entrepreneurs Challenge. So the info session is happening this Friday, September 17th at 12:30 in the follow-up email that we send. And I keep mentioning that we're going to give you lots of resources after this. Links to sign up for all of these things will be included as well. So don't worry, we are not going to leave you high and dry. So another event on Wednesday, the 22nd, is an event called Been There, Won That, Insider Tips from Challenge alums. So if you enjoyed hearing from Ioana and Giannis about their experience, be sure to sign up for this too. We have a couple of alumni from past years in a very kind of informal setting. Just share a little bit more about, what their experience was in the challenge. Okay, now some of the more substantive things. This is the first boot camp of the year, and this is an important one. It's called If You Build It, Who Will Care? So again, for those of you who are listening, the concept summary that you will be required to submit as part of the application. Question 1 is, who will care? So if you are struggling with that question, this is a boot camp that you definitely want to attend, and that will be happening on Sunday, September 26th, in the morning, 9:30 to 12:30. Additionally, two more events to go. Tuesday, September 28th, a teammate hunt. So if you are out there and you're a team of one, but you don't want to be a team of one, and I don't blame you, it's very hard to go it alone. We don't encourage that. We do encourage you to sync up with somebody who shares your vision. And if you are looking for that, come to the teammate hunt. That's going to be September 28th. Last but not least, we have a workshop being done by Kelly Lyons of Lion Share. What she does is incredible. She actually helps teams secure funding, and she's going to give us for an hour her insider tips on building a pitch deck. We are not at the phase of building pitch decks for the Entrepreneurs Challenge right now, so not to worry there. But if you're a founder, this is something that's always on your mind. Pitching is something that is kind of forever in the back of your mind, and people always have questions about how to do it right and what are the best tips. So again, if that's you, definitely be sure to sign up for this event as well when we send the link out. Okay, so really doing pretty well on time, just after 6 o'clock, and we are now about to head into Q&A. So I've been purposely, I caught myself at one point, I kept reading the chat and all of you had really great questions, but then I was getting distracted from the information that I was trying to present. But now is the time that we are going to get to answer all of these things. So I'm going to cover 2 quick things, and then I'm going to ask Cynthia to come out from hiding and help me answer your bajillion questions. But the first thing is, I think I mentioned this, but I know, this comes up a lot in the chat. Help, I was a little bit late, I joined a little bit late, or I wasn't taking notes, can I have access to the slides? Can I have access to the recording? Yes and yes. So that's an easy Q&A answered right there. All right, second thing is, How do I participate in the Q&A? If you have a question, there are two things that you can do. So some of you have already discovered the Q&A. So if you look on the right side of your screen, near the top, sort of upper right-hand corner, there are a few things you can click on, one of which is a Q&A tab. So if you want, you can drop your question in there, and Cynthia and I will kind of take turns going to the Q&A tab, reading questions that we feel will be applicable to sort of the broad group, and then answering them. Now, if you are brave, or you don't even have to be brave, but you just want to ask your question in person, maybe it's a little bit more complicated, or you don't want to type everything out, you can come on screen to ask your question. And you do that by pressing the raise hand button. So I can't see it on my end because I don't think it's available to admins because we're already on screen. But at the bottom of your screen, where you have all of your controls for audio, video, etc., there should be like a hand icon. And if you press that hand icon, you are indicating to us that you want to ask a question and you want to come on stage specifically to ask that question. So if we accept your raised hand, you'll come up on stage and, you'll have your video seen here by everybody, and then you can ask your question. So I see Cynthia on. So what I'm going to do, I hope those questions were clear. I will actually stop my screen share so that you can kind of see us a little bit larger, and then we'll go ahead and start answering questions. So Cynthia, I don't know if you see any that are kind of worthwhile, and it's just gotten dark in my room, so I'm gonna turn on the lights while Cynthia fields the first question.
So one question or theme that was coming up is why is the requirement that you have to, if you're going to be an alum who participates, that you have to be a Stern alum? And the requirement is when the competition was founded. So let me back up. The Berkeley Center is housed at NYU Stern, and we originally created to work with Stern students. But over the years, and the center is quite old. It far predates anyone on this call. But over the years, Stern felt it was important to expand our services to serve more and more of the startup community at the university. And so the decision was made some time ago to also work with current students, faculty, and so forth. The reason why all alumni aren't included is because that's an incredibly large universe. Some of the stipulations with regards to the gift and the founding of the center have required that we work with Stern students. But as I had mentioned in the chat, 90% of everything we do, we also do for NYU alum. And we have had NYU alum participate, recruit team members. Yes, you do have to meet the criteria, but very often it was worthwhile in the cases that I'm thinking of. And it worked fine. But I would not suggest it, quite frankly. $75,000 is not enough money to just recruit any warm body so that you can enter a competition. But what you can get that we offer through the competition is access to the workshops, the coaching, the advising. None of that changes, and assistance with identifying funding. So if we could expand, we will. But for right now, we find it's necessary to limit.
Okay, great. Let me go back. Ooh, lots. Okay, so forgive me because I'm not sure which end is up here. So I'm not sure if the ones at the bottom are the most recent or if the ones on top are. So, okay, quick one. Does this count for credit in the MBA program? So it does not currently. So this is, and I think it really speaks a lot to those who come to work with us. The motivation for everybody really is that, seeing your own startup launch and succeed. And Charlotte, you also had a question of kind of the ideation stages. So yes, it's early stage and ideation is okay, but ideation kind of with an intentional kind of shifting towards also being in kind of the prototype stage or coming out of ideation.
Yes, Triumph alumni qualify. So basically, the way to think of this is if you have a degree with NYU or some kind of you're going to be working towards that. So if you're currently working towards a degree, then you're certainly eligible. So currently working towards a degree that will have NYU across the top, you would certainly be eligible. Stern alumnus, also eligible. If you're a visiting scholar, no, because presumably you'll have some other university's name across the top, or you'll be here for a semester and then you'll be gone. So no, you wouldn't be eligible.
All right, I've got a couple of interesting ones too, and ones that I've seen in the past, so I'm going to take a stab at these. So one is, are nonprofits eligible to compete? And I've lost it now, so Shay, if you can find that, if you could mark that as answered. But the quick answer is no, and for the following reasons. In the competition part of this, one of the things that we're trying to assess is each team's ability to come up with an innovative revenue model. And this is actually a big part of what is assessed during the competition piece of this. How can you, devise a plan for sustaining revenue on your own? So if you are a nonprofit, that piece is sort of eliminated, and that's really the reason why nonprofits are excluded, just because it's not really it doesn't really become apples to apples, if that makes sense. I don't know, Cynthia, if you want to add anything to that in addition.
So one of the main things that not one of the main things, but an important indicator of the kind of adventure that we're looking for is we're also looking for companies that are investable. And so a nonprofit isn't investable. And so that's another way of thinking about it. We're looking for businesses that scale. So some of you may be working on lifestyle businesses, which are perfectly fine, and we can help you with that, but it's not quite a fit for the challenge. We're looking for bigger, out of the box, innovative ideas versus replicative. And that's not to say that you can't be perfectly successful in a replicative business, but it tends not to do quite as well in the challenge.
All right, so here's another one. Do we need to have an actual LLC or S Corp set up to apply? And the answer is no, you do not need that at this time. If you, make it to finals and are, the winner, at that point, you do need to set up your business entity, because the seed funding will only be awarded to your company and not to you as an individual. But in order to apply, absolutely not. You do not need to have that set up yet.
I'm trying to think. I think someone mentioned that there was a little trouble with links. We'll check that on the website. That surprises me, but we'll definitely check that. And when we do a follow-up, we'll send the link. We'll check that. And on the website, you'll find most of what everything we've discussed today, and then some.
Okay. All right, so there's a question here about being an alumna of Tandon. I think that was answered in your previous spiel there about alums at NYU. So thanks for asking that question, Blair. I'll go ahead and mark that as answered.
Yeah, a lot of good questions.
There are. I can't even keep up. Every time I try to mark something as answered, it scrolls and I've lost it. Okay, I'm not going to try to do that. Okay.
Oh, here's a good one. All the services free, or do we have to pay for Berkeley Center services? Most of our services are free. So for example, startup advising, the hackathon, that's free. There is an application fee for the challenge, and because it's our signature program, it's a bit of a beast, and there's a lot of costs associated with it. The $35, $25 we're talking about doesn't come anywhere near to covering the costs of that particular program. But generally, to come to a workshop, take advantage of the startup advising and that there's no charge for that.
Okay, here's another good one, Cynthia, and I'm gonna let you take this one because I feel like you've answered this one many times and are, have language, but is your idea protected? So probably a question around kind of NDAs, IP, all of that kind of stuff.
We do not, we as the staff will not sign any NDAs, nor do any of our volunteers. And the reason for that is we're able to work with you and provide assistance without you needing to share your recipe for your secret sauce. If you have an idea and you feel it can be stolen simply by speaking it to someone or talking about it to someone, then I suggest that you reevaluate the idea because it's probably not as good as you think it is. Or you're either selling yourself short. So your idea is not protected in that regard. Does that mean we're going to send out your deck? No, we don't do things like that, or your startup plan. So that speaks to another question that I saw come in, where someone asked if we can share an example of a startup plan. So no, we generally don't for a couple of reasons. One is that's protected. We feel someone's startup plan. If a founder says it's okay, then we will. But the other reason why we don't is because we provide extremely detailed workshops as well as guidebooks on how to develop the startup plan. And it's important that you follow. This is something that's very hard to do by looking at what someone else did. It really, your venture is your venture, your idea is your idea, your market is your market. And so we actually find it somewhat confusing when we begin sharing plans with folks. But we can work with you and put you with our coaches that can help you develop the plan. But in terms of, and by the way, we've never had any instances of IP being stolen.
All right, here's a really good one that I like, and I'll take this one. What has historically been the ideal number of team members? So great question. I don't know that you'll be pleased with my answer, but it's a great question. The answer is that it really depends. So, I did say at some point during the presentation, and I know Cynthia will back me up on this, that it's really hard to be a solo founder. It is not impossible by any means. Last year, we had a solo founder make it all the way to the finals. She was very busy, but she did make it, and she did well. I can't remember historically if we have had a solo founder win. If we have, it's been very few. And then, of course, on the other hand, if you have too many, it can be too many hands in the pot. There's not a clear sense of ownership among the team. But, we did have also one year a team of 5. That sounds like a lot, but they also won. And they were very good about delineating responsibility and making sure that each of the 5 individuals on their team had a very clear role. Even when it came down to the pitch, every single person on their team had a part in a 9-minute pitch, and it was done really beautifully. So it really depends on the type of venture that you have, what work needs to be done, and the skill sets of the individuals. So if you have a team of 4 and 3 of those people are all marketing experts, you're probably not going to be well served there. But there are really quite a lot of factors. But the important thing to note when kind of assembling your team is that you want to have a job for everybody to do and a job that they can be good at. And you want to have a difference, some differences of opinion. Not that you want to be co-founders with people you're going to fight with, but you want to, be able to challenge each other in a good way.
Related to that, I see Erica's asking, can you grow your team while in the challenge? Yes, that happens quite a bit. And yes, that's the short answer is yes. Let's see. How could we connect to the past participants for guidance? Oh, okay. So Phoebe mentioned a workshop not a workshop, but a program that we'll be doing. Been there, won that. And so that will be one start. And then many of them are the volunteers that we've been alluding to. They come back and to give back. Also, if there is a specific area that you're interested in, we can help match you with that. So, but yes, that does happen. We have a great group of alumni from the challenge.
Okay, so here's one. I'm an SPS student. I'll make it applicable to everybody. Essentially, residing outside of New York, you know, how does that work? Would you be required to attend in person? We have all been doing things remotely for the last year and a half. And the silver lining to all of that is that we have been able to accommodate teams that maybe we couldn't have before when everything was very much in person. So we will find a way to work with you if you are not in the area. For all we know, we might still be virtual anyway throughout, through May. We have yet to see what will happen, but we will certainly work with everybody. So if you are not local, do not worry.
Yeah. And I would actually say, since we're kicking off this semester virtually, that even if we switch to an in-person model for the spring, we wouldn't kick people out of the program or penalize you because now we're in person. So we would, and we know now that we can, accommodate. I saw something that went by very quickly that I think is important to clarify. And that is with regards to if you're a nonprofit and you have a for-profit subsidiary. If it's a for-profit subsidiary, yes, you would be eligible, but it has to be the for-profit subsidiary that you're pitching. So I think that should be, the point is, if you can accept investment capital, then you are eligible.
Okay, lots of stuff. I'm going to try to filter out.
I see one here about professors for the teammate hunt. I think professors often come to the teammate hunt looking for team members. If there is a faculty member that you would like to reach out to, or a specific research or skill set that you're looking for, I would suggest identifying the school where those type of faculty members are teaching. Go through every school has a faculty directory, and then take a look, and then outreach to them. And depending upon who you're looking at, we might even be able to assist you. But we do get a fair number of faculty. In fact, we had a faculty member one was it just this past cycle? And I'm getting lost in the timing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we actually do have quite a few faculty members that do participate and do quite well. And
all right, here's a question about startups who make physical consumer products. Yes, absolutely. I can't say, oh, you'll make it to the finals. But yes, we do absolutely welcome, physical consumer products in the challenge. In this day and age, there certainly are a lot of digital products, and we have a lot of those, but it's not because it's our preference by any means.
Mm-hmm. Another good question from Megan. With regards to, can the market be outside the U.S.? Absolutely. NYU is such a global university. We have participants from all of NYU's global campuses. And so it's not unusual at all to have concepts. Like, for example, the Madagascar, the good Beyond Good candy bar story that I told you about, they're based in Madagascar. So absolutely. Can you have a high school student on your team? Absolutely. Why not?
Okay, here's an interesting one. I've never gotten this one before. How often does it happen that two or more teams have the same pitching, essentially the same idea? I haven't had the question, but we've had it happen before, and in some ways it's good because people are identifying that there are, problems that exist and they're trying to tackle those. So I remember one year we had three separate ventures addressing clothing fit for women and how difficult it is for women to, the whole shopping process and coming up with apps to try to alleviate the stress, the difficulty, the cost, all of those different things. So I don't know if it's just, that's the whole question, is that, are you just curious? But it does happen. And may the best venture win, I think is really what it is. So I don't know if there was anything more to the question than that, but yes, we have seen that. Okay, Can a current student who is on leave of absence take part? Unfortunately, no. You do need to be currently enrolled in classes to be considered a current student. Okay, and then here's another question, a question specific to them, but one that is applicable to a lot of teams. So this is a question from Cindy, basically saying, we don't know whether we should participate in the tech venture competition or new venture. And there are likely to be many of you out there who will face a similar kind of internal question as to what would be a good fit. And those are discussions that we can have. And in addition, if you are a good fit for two, pick one. And sometimes what we will do during the kind of application process and reading through everybody's applications, if we find that there is a team that maybe selected the wrong track for themselves, but they're actually a very worthwhile team, what we would not do is say, oh, they'd be a great team, but they applied for the wrong track, so therefore we're going to reject them. So we would probably nudge you and say, we'd love to take you, but this track probably is not appropriate for you, and this one is, and then we would work with you there. But yes, if you have questions, it's the kind of thing where it's really hard to give a one-size-fits-all answer. We may just need to hear a little bit more about what you specifically are working on in order to help you make that determination. Okay. This is obviously an incredible opportunity that combines a lot of, a lot of passion and work at home, extracurriculars. Is the Accelerator the only certain extracurricular that past competition entrants could handle in addition to classes? So this is really a time commitment question. It definitely is a time commitment to participate in the challenge. As just at the tail end of the presentation, I was listing the events in the month of September alone, and I think that was like 5 or 6 events, and we're already halfway through the month of September. Not to say that you are required to be at every single thing, but yes, if you want to take advantage of every single thing we have to offer, you'll be seeing a lot of us and we'll be seeing a lot of you. And it really comes down to, your individual preference. You know yourselves best. So there are some individuals who thrive handling and juggling many things at once. Not everybody is as great at multitasking or taking on so many commitments. So you really need to sort of look inside yourself and determine, how much you feel you can handle at any given time. Unfortunately, there's not, one answer to satisfy everybody.
Let's see. Okay, another question from Erica is with regards to can you set up an advising appointment to review your application before submitting it? There is, you can come to startup advising. So this is separate and apart from the formal challenge coaching, and you can get some feedback. Phoebe alluded earlier when we played the FinClude video that without a doubt, if we go back the last almost every single year, those teams that do the best take advantage of all of the services that we offer and then some. And so you come to the coaching, you come to the workshops, we're very explicit about what it takes and what we're looking for. Ultimately, though, what it comes down to is your ability to tell a really good story. And that story needs to include some proof of concept, some traction, a really compelling market opportunity. And that can't be faked and that can't be coached, quite frankly. We can coach how to present it, but you have to do the research and you have to have done some testing so that you have data that you can point to make the case. So, but I guess, so the short answer is yes, but.
Okay. There was one that I wanted to answer, and of course I've lost it. But somebody asked, let me see if I can just remember the question, but somebody asked, is there a place where we can access like the past winners? It's a two-part question. So yes, on our website, we do actually have a listing of past winners. But the reason that the individual was asking was, he said, since those are basically off the table, he wants to know what those are. So let me explain. When we said, I think you're referring to the part where I was speaking about eligibility and said that if you have entered a concept before and made it to the finals, you are not eligible to compete with that same concept. That would be your team. So as an example, let's say that I came up with a venture concept to have a group, a business that helps other entrepreneurs. And I entered my idea into the Entrepreneurs Challenge, and we made it to the finals, but we didn't win. I could, and my venture was called the Berkeley Center for Entrepreneurship. I could not then enter the Berkeley Center for Entrepreneurship, my same idea, into the Entrepreneurs Challenge the following year. Now, if you have a venture concept that seems similar to a venture that was done before, those are still two completely different things. I wouldn't recommend it because, you know, if it's been done, it's not very novel, but on a technical basis, you would be eligible to compete with that venture. That wouldn't be the same thing. It would be something that seems similar, but we're talking about basically entering the same company into the competition twice.
Okay. And then Keith, I thank you for this question. Keith is an MBA, and he wants to know how MBAs who are interested in working with the consulting program, how do you go about doing that? We're working in partnership with ESA, so perhaps you're a member of ESA, Keith. If you're not, I would suggest you reach out to them, but certainly reach out to Phoebe so that when we begin working with ESA, we can be sure that you are in the loop. But sign up for ESA. They're the graduate MBA club. And then we will be holding a separate information session for MBAs who are interested in taking on consulting projects on behalf of these of the semifinalists that are competing. Thanks for that question.
Okay, and I don't know if this is a good idea or not, but I'm going to put my email address in the chat.
They can find you.
Okay. Okay.
Let's see. Did we miss? If we missed anything?
Oh, here's one that I just found in the chat. It wasn't included in the Q&A, but I have a consulting business with a product component. The element of the business that they would like to scale, would they be eligible to apply? It's hard for me to conceptualize what that means, but so
you're not entering a consulting concept. You happen to be a consulting business that's looking to diversify into products. So yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But what we want to stay away from, and what tends to not be incredibly investable, is when it's basically, you know, what's between your ears is what you're selling. That's very hard to scale, obviously. But if you found a way to scale what it is you do, then yes, that might be quite interesting to us. And there was another one, about the grants and opportunities. Grants and funding. So this is mainly with regards to prototyping and concept testing. And so these are reimbursable. So you'll have to spend a little money, and you're welcome to run by us what it is you're looking to do. And then we'll say, yep, this fits, no, this doesn't. And then we ask you to present some receipts. And so we've had teams that have done a variety of things. It might be developing a digital prototype. It might be, we've had a team that did hang tags. So it really depends upon your concept. And I would suggest that you talk to us or a coach in order to get some sense of whether or not this is a test, because there's lots of different types of tests you can do. And it's very easy to just test things that may not be the most significant. You think it is, and oftentimes it's not. And so we just want to be sure that you're heading off in the right direction. And well, the amounts are at them at about 1,500, I believe. Yeah. So, but it actually goes quite a long way for most. Okay.
Yeah. Sabrina has a good question. What's the smoothest way for alums, presumably non-Stern alums who are not eligible on their own for the competition? So just want to clarify that you can still partner up with a current student or an alum of Stern in order to be eligible as a team for the competition. But I do hear what you're saying and what you're asking, and Sabrina, and for anybody else in Sabrina's position, definitely check out the website. So again, that is, and Shay, if you could drop that into the chat, that would be helpful. It's NYU Stern, berkeleycenter.com. We have another program that runs all year round called Startup Advising, and this is actually Shay's baby. So where I, generally manage the day-to-day operations of the challenge with Shay's help. Shay is the reverse. Shay manages the day-to-day operations of the Startup Advising program. And every once in a blue moon, I'll assist her with that. But Startup Advising is essentially a collection of appointments in many, many different flavors, ranging from more general to very specific in a number of verticals, all related to startups. So we have a financial services help desk. I'm not speaking correctly. Startup financials help desk. We have a marketing help desk, a branding help desk, a prototyping help desk, all sorts of different help desks to assist you with questions in a number of different subject areas, all related to startup. And that's open to anyone from NYU. So even if you are a solo founder who is an alum of, say, Tisch, you would be welcome to utilize that service on your own. And it's a great resource. Lots of things have come out of it. I don't know if you got my email about it, Cynthia, but I was recently served up a ton of ads on Instagram for this company, Inca, which is like a boutique a luxe lunch bag. And for a long time, the founder was working through Startup Advising. So she didn't do the challenge. A structured program was not really her bag, but she came and utilized tons of these, one-off appointments. And she's launched, and her product looks absolutely incredible. So yes, definitely there are ways that you can get involved with us, and we would love to get involved with you as well.
She's a former student of mine, I have to say that.
Oh,
yeah, but no, literally, she would come in and meet with one of our advisors, and I would leave at 9, 10 at night and leave them here.
And they were still talking. Yeah, I remember that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's see how we're doing.
It's about 6:41, although we've still got, well over 100 people on. Maybe we answer a few more questions. And then we can, for any folks who didn't get their question answered, and most likely those are the ones that are, it's very specific to you, which is maybe why we didn't tackle those. You now have my email address. It's not hard to find us, actually. Our email addresses are online. A secret that's not very well kept. But you can absolutely find us. And again, as I mentioned 20 times over the course of the presentation, we'll be in touch with you in a follow-up email to give you links to everything. Cynthia mentioned something wasn't working. I'll touch base with Cynthia on whatever links weren't working. We'll get that sorted out. Recording, the slides, a guidebook that we've been working on to summarize all of this information about the challenge, all sorts of different resources for you, and ways to connect with us. And somebody had actually asked, will we be reminded of these deadlines? And the answer is yes. So if you signed up to attend this, you'll be added to a dedicated newsletter focusing on the challenge only that we will start putting out, I think, towards the end of the month, where, yes, we will kind of give you updates on, what's coming up next, what's coming up this week in relation to the challenge, what's on the horizon, what do you have to watch out for.
I see something from Tracy with regards to what examples of testing. That's essentially what the workshop at the end of the month will be. If you build it, who will care? It really depends upon what it is you're working on. So sometimes it could be as simple as throwing up a landing page and see if you can get people to come and sign up, or share information with you, or indicate a desire to purchase. By, you don't have to accept the money, but you just can set it up to see if they purchase. So there's a lot of different ways to test. Um, it really depends upon where you are, what your riskiest assumptions are. Your riskiest assumptions, hint, are usually around demand, market need. And so we're looking for indication that there are customers out there who are just so unhappy with the status quo that they are looking for alternatives, and that your specific solution would uniquely fill that need. So just because someone's unhappy with what's currently out there doesn't mean that your solution is going to be an answer. And so what we're talking about in that workshop will be, how do you figure that out? And there's a lot of on that we can cover. So that's an example. I've actually had a team do a simple flyer with the tear offs that you probably see on telephone, well, not on poles, white lamp poles along the street, and just do that, just to test whether or not people were interested in what they were selling. It really depends upon where you are. It's one of my favorite parts of the process. Okay.
Here's one that two people asked the same question, and I feel like we may have answered it, but maybe we answer it again since it looks like people have the same one. Can you go into more detail on opportunities for grants and funding along the way as we build? So we certainly can talk a little bit about our own prototyping grant, and you did touch on it. I think you were just asking it. Yeah. So we do have that. It's an application process, just to sum up again very briefly. And so if you are admitted, if your team is accepted into the cohort, then you would be eligible to apply for that. And then we review each application on a case-by-case basis, and then award up to I think it's about $1,500, depending on what you need and how strong of a case you make.
There's a question also: does it have to be a physical product or digital? Either way, so that depends. Either way. So what I'm going to suggest in, say, the last 5 minutes is, if there's anybody who's still on with us, and we have not answered your question, and you would just be like totally upset if you don't get the question answered, I would suggest raising their hand, or just on how would you making themselves known in a way that we can just kind of cut right through all this other stuff here.
Could we speak to people in the social lounge? Could we have people meet us out there?
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah. Okay. So for those of you who are new to AirMeet, if you came and you were a little bit early, you might have been dropped into something called the social lounge, where there were all these kind of virtual tables and it said join, and you're probably like, I don't know, that seems a little bit scary. But again, for those of you who still have questions in the queue and we didn't get around to you, what we'll do is we will close down this kind of webinar style session. And then we will put ourselves at, maybe we'll split up, Cynthia, and you take the first table, the table in the upper left, and I'll take the upper middle table. So Cynthia and I will each take a table, and you can join our table and chat with us kind of one-on-one. So for those of you who still have lingering questions, that way, those folks who are kind of just hanging on for the ride, just kind of want to see what else is out there, we'll let you go for the evening. As I mentioned, we will follow up with you with recordings, slides, links, email addresses, probably tomorrow or the day after at the very latest. But yes, you can join us in the social lounge if you have questions. And maybe, I don't want to speak for Shay because she might be clicking on things and doing her own follow-up and speaking to people already. But if Shay is available, maybe Shay can do a third table. But for sure, Cynthia and I will each take one table in the social lounge for about like 10 to 15 minutes to pick up any stray questions that we didn't get in the broader Q&A. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining us. We had an incredible amount of people joining, lots of great questions. Cynthia, do you have anything to add?
No, thank you. We just look forward to seeing you throughout the month and in the weeks ahead. And just do it. If you're doubting at all, just do it. Jump right in and check things out. It's an extremely worthwhile program. And just for those of you who feel that you may not be ready, we've had some teams that basically go through one cycle without really trying to compete, and then preparing themselves for the following cycle. And that I actually would recommend that. So where there are a lot of questions about what's too early, and I would say if you're walking away feeling I'm a little early, that's okay. Take advantage of what you can, and so you can be that better positioned for the next cycle, because it'll come around very quickly.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again. We'll let everybody go, and we'll see those few of you in the social lounge in just a minute. Bye, everybody. Have a good evening.